288.
Don't worry.
288. And
hey, listen, Mr. Statistics got all that information. Don't worry, man. He has a question for you, though. Go ahead.
Well,
the other thing is Jim Cott should be somewhere, but he's not, and he's got 280-something himself, I believe.
283.
And, so, but you're looking at Tommy John, and he's battled it as well. He's well served.
Yeah, and
so really is.
Tommy John, I mean, won more games post-surgery than he did pre-surgery. He had 288 wins. He had 164 following the surgery that James Andrews performed. Here's something I will say about Munson, and I agree with you. Ted Simmons belongs in the Hall of Fame, and here's why. The average wins above replacement for a catcher is 54.3. Ted Simmons is 50.3. When you can balance hitting 285 as a catcher, and I don't love batting average, but when Ted Simmons, who played a little bit of outfield and first base at some points in his career when he was with Milwaukee and obviously with your St. Louis Cardinals, when you can balance it, and he almost hit 250, he had 248 home runs. That's impressive. When you can balance a 348 career on base with a 285 batting average and to project wins above replacement that high at that position, a position that excludes a lot of catchers, I think he belongs. Now, as for Munson, I'll say this, and I'll let you get back to your point, Mark. Here's a player that you probably grew up watching, and you too, Scott, because I know this guy was...
You mean Munson?
Well, here's a name that I'm going to say. You're a pitcher. You pitched 10 years in the major leagues, and you were in Major League Baseball for more than 3 decades.
I pitched against Munson.
No. What I'm saying is this: a guy that you grew up watching, Sandy Koufax. Sandy Koufax pitched from 55 to 66. Munson played from 69 to 79. Munson did what you need to do. He won 2 World Series. He won in 77 and 78. He was on a World Series team that lost to the Reds in 76. Obviously, they won back-to-back titles. Munson won an MVP in 76, like I said. Koufax won an MVP in 63, right? Koufax played 11 years. His wins above replacement is 49-2. That's far below the average for starting pitchers. Munson played about the same amount of time as Koufax, and his career WAR is 46-1. That's below the average for catchers, but he did enough, I think, in those 10 years as Koufax did in his 11 seasons. And granted, Koufax wasn't even a great pitcher until about 1961. To justify him being in the Hall of Fame, you can't control a Cessna plane going down in August of 79 in Ohio as to why Munson's not in the Hall of Fame. It's not his fault, though he was flying the plane. But Munson's a Hall of Famer for the reason that we know he could have done enough to accumulate those numbers. I mean...
Well, he did, but he didn't. He didn't stick around long enough to me. But the other factor is that Sandy Koufax is Sandy Koufax. He's not Thurman Munson.
That is true.
Sorry to say that.
Mm-hmm.
But, you go, some people will balk at Thurman who if they're not from New York.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So you've got the East Coast. You've got a lot of press here now.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got all the coast ganging up on the guys from the Midwest. I'm not standing up for the Midwest guys, but good grief, if you got 21 years in New York as Simmons did, don't you think he'd probably run for mayor, and he'd probably beat Bloomberg for sure. But I'm just saying, good grief, he's got a little more sense than that guy. But the other thing is that there's just a lot. It's going to be interesting because it's the 10th. The vote is the 10th. And, Munson spoke to me. As a matter of fact, I got a little thing where he spoke to me, actually. I didn't speak to hitters, but we had a rain delay in New York. And it was underneath us in 1976 when I was 23 years old. And it was before the playoff games. It wasn't during the playoff games, but it was during a regular season game. And underneath there was a few of us congregators, 4 or 5 Royals, 4 or 5 Yankees, and I was just listening in. And all of a sudden, Munson wants to find out a little bit more about me, which is basically his job, or anybody's job to say, hey, what makes this guy tick? You think he'll knock you down or something? Sure I will. But anyway, it was raining, and Thurman turns to me and says, hey, country boy, what do you think? We're going to get this rain thing in? And I said, I don't feel like a weatherman tonight, Thurman. So, and that's about all I said. He snickered. I snickered, and I turned and walked away. So, that's about it. But I just didn't, I was always like Gibson. I don't mean to say I so much, but I like Gibson's demeanor as where he would turn and say, screw you. He never talked to hitters.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I learned that. But Munson, on his due diligence, was the leader, a very big time leader, stood out. You could tell it, so. He had an aura about him.
Yeah, I mean, and a 292 batting average as a catcher is nothing to slouch at either. I mean, we talk about Ted Simmons hitting 285 in an era that wasn't.
He did it for 11 more years.
That is true. I do agree with you on that one.
Doggone it. And he's wear tear here, and he's a catcher behind the plate, and that's the hardest position out on the field. That kills you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me just say.
He had twice the time of Munson.
Let me say one thing about Ted Simmons. He actually grew up in my hometown of Southfield, Michigan.
That's right. Yeah, he's a Michigan boy.
Yeah, he is.
In Michigan, boy.
Yeah, Southfield, Michigan. That's all I got to say. Keep going.
All right, now, Mark.
Ran in the hood. Okay.
Mark, I want to ask you this because you played in the era when this became a thing. You remember you debuted in '73. Free agency wasn't a thing until '75.
Yeah.
Marvin Miller is the guy that organized the unions. He abolished the players league or the reserve clause that had tried to be gotten rid of by John Montgomery Ward in 1891 when he formed the players union. In your opinion, in my opinion, he's one of the 5 most important men in the history of baseball because on the financial side, he revolutionized it. In your eyes, does Marvin Miller belong in the Hall of Fame? We have executives in there.
Yeah, I think he does. It's big time. I've never heard a man speak so eloquently for, he would have us out for 10 minutes in the middle of the outfield when we were doing the strike thing or a owner lockout or whatever. And I was involved in 6 strikes and 1 owner lockout. So I was right in the middle of everything right there.
Right.
The most of the heavy stuff, except for the 94 thing. But it was kind of interesting when Marvin Miller spoke, man, he carried some big weight. He was really eloquent the way he said certain things. And you understand why he should be in the Hall of Fame. He's purely a baseball man.
Mm-hmm.
He really is.
Mm-hmm.
And he came out of United. I think he came out of United Steel with the unions there.
Mm-hmm.
So he was already a heavyweight, and to come into the baseball scene and want to take over there, wow, had some guts.
Scott, you want to interject on that?
Yeah,
Well,
big time.
The only thing I'll say about Miller to me is a debatable choice, but as I ponder you guys talking, the only 2 things that really stand out to me, I definitely believe that Lou Whitaker should be there with Trammell as one of the better double play combinations. You 2 made a good case already for Simmons, so I'm not going any further there. The guy I'd like to see really get in is Tommy John. Not only did he win a lot of games, how many careers did he save by having that surgery?
Oh, yeah.
So I would classify him as pitcher, mark, and pioneer, and then go from there. But other than that, watching you 2 talk to me is fine, as I'll organize my thoughts as you guys go along. Go ahead.
Now, Mark, you were already with St. Louis by the time that Whitaker debuted, and it's fun fact, he debuted the same day as Alan Trammell in September of 1977. I believe it was September 2nd. Whitaker, and I hate to throw too many stats, adjusted OPS plus, which accounts for your total offensive output, is better than 2 guys. One guy that debuted near the tail end of your career was Ryan Sandberg. His career OPS plus 114. Roberto Alomar, who is one of the better defensive second basemen and offensive second baseman of all time, his OPS plus 116. Whitaker's is 117. Why that means a lot is because it adjusts for ballparks and leagues. The American League, as we know, is a very hard league to hit in, and he debuted when the designated hitter was already a thing. And you debuted the same year that Ron Blueberg became the first DH in baseball history. With that said, he's also a better defender by range factor, so he was able to get to more balls. Isn't it ridiculous that Whitaker's not in the Hall of Fame? And I know you didn't get to face him one-on-one given that you were already with St. Louis at the time, but shouldn't this be a guy that should have gotten in a long time ago?
Well, he carries his weight quite well. And, I don't know him and never faced him, but you sure heard a lot about him. And, you'd catch a game on TV and you'd watch his range. You'd watch, the way he handled himself. He's definitely Hall of Fame material.
Yeah.
And, you look at the numbers and things of that nature. The thing is about the Hall of Fame, I was there speaking about on my book a couple years ago. And Hall of Fame can get a bad name real quick. I think if they just start making this anybody can get in too.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Good point, Mark.
Because, you just can't say, well, he was a good player. Well, he wasn't a great player. Mm-hmm. There's a difference. You hear this say, well, he's a great player. Oh, really? He's a great player. Are you kidding me? George Brett was a great player.
Absolutely.
So, come on. Now, you try to put the scale on that, of where you're at. And, there's just so many variables in here And, just because maybe Detroit or Angels or whoever they don't balance out with the amount of Hall of Fame material out there sometimes. I mean, I'm just picking those out of the chute, or Seattle or whoever,
right.
or the Rangers. We have to balance this up. No, they don't have to do a damn thing. Are they good enough? Come on. We're talking millennial crap here now, giving everybody awards.
Right.
We don't need that shit. So, sorry.
No, that's okay. Hey, Mark, one thing I want to do on the program tonight, and I've got an idea, okay, is we're going to carry the Astros cheating thing over to our show on January the 2nd, and we're going to do an in-depth show on that. How's that sound? That way you and Lewis will focus on maybe one more Hall of Fame nugget, and then we're going to talk about the World Series since that just concluded. How's that sound? So go ahead, Lewis. One or two more candidates, and then we'll recap the World Series while we have another 10, 12 minutes or so, okay?
So here's a guy that I know that you faced because he was in the league at the same time while you were with Kansas City, and that's Dwight Evans, one of the better defensive right fielders of all time. Obviously played alongside Fred Lynn. I believe he won 8 Gold Glove awards. The wins above replacement, if you want to get into that, 67.5. That's enough, in my opinion, to be in the Hall of Fame. When you watch Dwight Evans play, and again, you faced him, so you have a better knowledge of him than any of us do, were you, in your eyes, and I know you faced him early on, but were you seeing somebody who could possibly have been a Hall of Famer?
I never thought of him as a Hall of Famer. What was his overall hitting?
I believe he hit over I don't have the home runs with him, but the wins above replacement showed you a combination of good offensive output. I believe wins above replacement offensively was over 50, and then the defense only elevates him because he had nearly 68 WAR and all the defense. That's close to what Roberto Alomar had at second base, and he was a second ballot 90% Hall of Famer. The only reason he didn't get in first year is because he spit in an umpire's face when he was in Toronto. But Dwight Evans again.
That was a joke. Yeah. Anyway, but Dewey is a great ball player. I know that because I've seen him play, and he's a hell of an outfielder. I just never I thought his hitting was questionable. You got to remember he's playing in Boston. That's a ping pong park, Good grief.
I like that term, ping pong park.
Hit there, and it goes off the wall.
You're not wrong.
Oh, Mark, that. I'll tell you, you always deliver them, buddy. And no, I'm not talking nutty, buddy. I'm talking ping pong park. So that was good.
Well, it is. That's a ping pong park.
Oh, that is great.
You want to play? Some of that other stuff we played. In the high school. It's pretty interesting. How that park plays. You're staring at 33 feet of wall going straight up. It goes out 178 feet before the first bend. And then you've got that height right there. And then you've got about 280-something feet to that wall.
Pesky pole.
That's Little League Park, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
Jesus Christ. You get the Taiwanese Little League in there, and they'll smoke the crap out of it. Those guys are huge. They're all 6-footers, And, I don't know, you've got pinball. I'm going to say pinball machine because it's like a pinball park. Good bing, 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 bing. Yeah. And for some reason, I have no reason why I pitched well there. And I even got a standing O there. I thought, wow, these people are sick puppies. Wow, this is cool.
Well, you know what, Mark? I'll tell you this right now, and I'm glad we're doing this baseball show. You're going to come on as often as you want to talk about that, that's for sure. But meanwhile, so I'm looking forward to what we're going to come up with when we build this thing. But we have one more thing we'll talk about today anyway, since it's more timelier. And since you and Lewis and I have talked about the Hall of Fame thing, and of course, in the month of January, we'll find out when the other inductees on. We'll create space there, too. But let's talk only about the World Series winner. And as I alluded to, we'll wait on the Astros cheating thing until January the 2nd. How's that? Why don't you two interact about what's yeah, right, there you go. But why don't we just talk about the well, exactly. That's why we're devoting the show to it. But meanwhile, let's talk about the World Series winner. The Nationals definitely going to be paying a lot of capital to keep their players.
I like that one.
A lot of capital. I know. I come up with them, too. You got ping pong park, pinball parks, and I come up with here. So let's talk about the World Series winner. The Nationals beat the Astros. Well, go ahead, both of you. Spar it out and see what you come up with here.
What do you think? What do you think, Luke?
I had predicted at the outset this would be one of the better World Series, and I was kind of let down with the way it played out. I thought